This month's podcast episodes are proudly sponsored by my own book, Bring Your Product Idea to Life. Have you ever had a great idea for a product? Or does creating a product to sell appeal to you? Where do you begin? How do you come up with a product idea? And if you have an idea, how do you know if it's even viable? In Bring Your Product Idea to Life, I take you through the process of creating your product step by step. From developing your product idea to finding suppliers and launching your product, we cover it all. The book includes advice on how to price your product, where to sell it, and how to find out if anyone will actually buy it. Designed to help you make real progress, Bring Your Product Idea to Life is both practical and motivational. Every chapter includes clear action steps so you know exactly what to do and when. This isn't just a book for reading, this is a book for doing. Bring Your Product Idea to Life is available via Amazon, on my website, and linked in the show notes for this episode. Welcome to the Bring Your Product Idea to Life podcast. This is the podcast for you if you're getting started selling products or if you'd like to create your own product to sell. I'm Vicky Weinberg, a product creation coach and Amazon expert. Every week, I share friendly, practical advice as well as inspirational stories from small businesses. Let's get started. Hello, so today on the podcast, I am speaking to Sophie Mahlo. Sophie produces and sells the iconic Gluggle Jug. So you might have seen this jug. It looks like a fish and makes a gurgling sound when you pour it. Sophie actually owns the factory that produces and makes the Gluggle Jug. And this is quite new. Sophie shares her story of how she started off first finding out about the Gluggle Jug. She then became the distributor for the product in Germany. And she talks about how that evolved and how and why she now today owns the factory. So as you can imagine, this is a fascinating story. I don't want to give too much away in the intro because I would love you to listen. So I'm going to stop talking and introduce you now to Sophie. So hi, Sophie. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, dear Vicky. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome. Can we start by you giving an introduction to yourself, your business, and what you sell, please?
Yeah. So my name is Sophie Mahlo. I'm living in Berlin, and I'm 48 years old. And I started a business consisting in distributing the famous Gluggle jugs, which I'm not sure your listeners need an introduction to because it's such a popular item in the UK. It's a fish jar, or it's a water pitcher in form of a fish that has been created in 150 years ago in 1870 in Staffordshire, and that has been and that gurgles when you use it. So usually when you pour water out of it or when you bounce it, and and because of that funny sound that it makes, and because of the many laughters that it provokes, it's still around. And so I used to distribute it for the last 13 years, first in Germany and then Europe, and now I do a bit more. But maybe should I just say it?
Yeah, you can say.
Yeah. Okay. And eventually, end of 2022, I bought the factory that produces them in Stoke On Trent, which we now call the Gluggle Jug Factory, and I run that factory.
Well, that is amazing. And as you say, we've got so much to cover. So let's start, if you don't mind, Sophie, right at the beginning with, so when did you discover Gluggle Jugs? When did you first come across them, as it were?
So actually also 13 years ago, I went to visit a friend of mine who is half British, half Belgian. Her name is Vic, and she invited me for a nice brunch. And I was really thirsty, and I said to another friend of mine, well, I need to drink something. I'm so thirsty. And he said, oh my God, let me show you something really fun that will, pour water out of it. And then he served me a glass of water from a white Gluggle jug, and everybody started laughing and said, oh my God, this thing is so funny. And I was like, yeah, that it really is. And then we started all talking about it. And the story is that my British friend, her grandmother already had that Gluggle jug, and whoever gets married in her family gets offered a pair of Gluggle jugs. And so did she. So that was my first encounter of the Gluggle Jug in some apartment in Berlin.
Amazing. And when you found out about the jugs, how did you go from there to becoming the distributor?
So many of my friends already knew this fish from my friend. And they said, yeah, we all want to have one as well, but it's really difficult to buy one. You need to have an address in England for the agent at that time to send you a jug. And if you live outside of the UK, then they won't send it to you. And I was like, wow, but I thought, okay, that's weird, but let's see, and maybe we can do something about it. And at that time, I was writing a book in a library, and I had a lot of time compared to my friends. And I said, okay, I'm going to do some research and just try to get these fish so we can all enjoy them more. And so I went online and I Googled, and I found the website of the people that sold it. And I wrote them and I said, can you send me some fish over? And they said, no, we don't ship outside of the UK for insurance reasons, and also because the shipping is maybe too costly also. And then I said that sentence, you know, if there would be a way, we would have figured it out, because there's so much demand for this fish. We've been asked so many times outside of the UK to send it, and it just doesn't work. And that's why we won't send it to you. You need to give us a British address for us to send it out. And then I said, okay, well, if you don't want to send it to me, can you please give me the phone number of the people that produce it? Maybe they would be willing to send me the fish directly. And they said, yes, the fish is produced by Wade Ceramics. And they gave me the contact person of their sales manager, Kim Rowley. And I got in touch with her. And I asked her if she would sell me jugs, and she's like, yeah, of course, but you have to figure out the shipping, and you have to, bear the risk for it. And I was like, yeah, just make sure they're nicely wrapped, and it should make a difference whether you send a fish within the UK or outside of the UK. So let's just do that. And then she said, okay, you have to take 10 because that's our minimum order. And I was like, well, okay, I'd take 4 for my friends, 1 for me. And then I thought, maybe it's a nice gift to have, so I'll take those 10. So I ordered them, I figured out the shipping, it comes to Berlin. And as soon as they were here, I was super proud of having them. And I had some fun neighbors in my house or in the house in which I lived. And whenever they walked the stairs up, they always knocked at my door. And I'm like, guys, you have to come in and listen to this. And then I showed them the fish and they said, oh my God, this is so funny. And I'm invited to a wedding. I'm going to take 2 of those. And the other one said, yeah, I want to have one too. So within 1.5 days, I had sold the other 5 fish that I had bought in addition. And then I was like, okay, my friends and I are not the only ones that really love this thing. And it's so fun to sell it because, as you can imagine, everybody was laughing around the selling process in the sense that when showing the fish and then making it gurgle, everybody was so, happy and laughing. And it's like, oh my God, I need to have it. And then, so I thought, okay, maybe I'm onto something here. I'm going to call this Kim again. And given the fact that their jugs are not sold abroad, I'm just going to ask them to give me the distribution rights for, let's say, German-speaking Europe. Because I thought if I build up a website, it's going to be in German. And obviously, there's not only, at that time, we didn't have these apps where you have like 20 languages and so on. But I thought, if I make it in German, then I can just cover all German-speaking Europe, meaning Austria, Switzerland, and north of Italy. So I'm going to ask for the German-speaking distribution rights. And I told them, if you're happy with my work, I would like to ask for the option to extend the exclusivity for another year. Sorry, I didn't say that, but obviously I wanted to have exclusivity for a certain time, but I also understood that nobody gives you exclusivity if they don't know you and if they don't know how you perform. So I tried to agree a deal that would meet my and their interest, and make sure that they get not stuck with someone that doesn't do anything for their product. So I said, okay, let's start with a certain period of time, and then if you're happy with my performance, then you will extend that exclusivity, and if you're happy again, then we continue like that. So a rolling option. And also and I made sure that I also built some pressure on myself, in the sense that the numbers of sales had to increase from term to term, to give them a good feeling and look kind of serious to them. And luckily they agreed. So I started order. So once I had cleared that with them, you need to know I'm a lawyer by profession. Not anymore, but that's what I used to be at that time. And obviously I had no background in distributing, selling, except of my services, but selling in a shop, building up a brand, no knowledge whatsoever. But I really loved this thing. And I knew that if you show it, that usually people will like it. So I was quite confident about it. And maybe in the beginning, I was also having second thoughts, because I studied in the States, I studied in Germany, I'm an attorney in different countries. And then first I thought, okay, what will my clients think if they see that I'm selling a fish jar? What will that mean for my professional legal career? But then I thought, well, they don't need to know. And it can just be like a little side dish, and it's just fun. And anyway, I'm writing this PhD, so why not having a little some side money? And I didn't have big expectations of anything, right? I just thought, I have nothing to lose. I don't need to scream it all around that I'm doing this. I'm just going to start and see how people react. And so wherever I went, I always had a fish in my bag. And whenever I passed a cool store, and in Mitte in Berlin, there are lots of cool stores close to the university, close to the library. I'm just going to walk in and show them the fish. And that's what I did. So I went to cool stores, or just some nice stores. I also went to some bars and restaurants that had a good reputation. Very often if you go to a bar or place, then you'll see some water on a desk with some cups for clients if they want to drink something. And I showed them the fish, and I talked them into exchanging that normal bottle, let's say, versus this beautiful fish jar. Or I showed it to shops. I just walked into a shop. I asked to talk to the manager. I showed him. I asked for some water also. So I didn't carry the water around with me. And then I showed them the thing, and I said, would you like to order some? Would you like to try? And so on. And they were open, because in the end of the day, shops always want to sell something new. They're always looking for something new. So they're actually really grateful if you come and show them something that could sell. Yeah. Especially if you're excited yourself about it. So that's how I started. And then I wanted to order 100 in order to make sure that the shipping costs are not too high. And I thought, in order to keep my own risk low, I'm just going to sell 50 of those already to some shop owners. And, and then have 50 on reserve for me, for, friends or friends of friends or whatever. And that way I knew that with the money that I would get from the shops, I would more or less cover the cost of the fish that I had in stock for myself. And also I asked the shop owners to pay, to do prepayment, to also have a low risk. And and they agreed. I didn't want them to pay long before. I just told them, as soon as I've got those fish, I will send you an invoice, and then I ask you to pay. So, and then right away I'm gonna deliver the goods. So that worked really nicely, and again it kept my own risk really low. It's not so difficult to sell 50 items. I just collected the orders. I had no pressure anyway. I mean, no big pressure. And of course, before I started selling the jugs, I sat down and I thought, okay, how much does Wade want for it? How much do I need to pay for the shipping? What happens if the pound gets stronger and the euro lower? So I need a little buffer zone there. What if if this grows and scales and I need someone to help me? So I need to count that in. And what happens? And then, of course, I knew that I need the orders of the merchants to, buy a lot of them. And therefore, it was really important that I already had some margin, even if I was selling to a shop. Many people that start selling something, they think about the B2C business, meaning business to customer. So they think about the B2C prices, and they forget a little bit about the B2B business. But you want to make sure that your end consumer price also covers business, B2B business. Okay, so that if then a shop comes and says, oh my God, I saw this on this and that client, I want to sell it too, that you don't lose that market. Yeah.
And I just asked Sophie, thank you for all of that. So with that, did you set the B2B price? Obviously you set the B2B price. Did you set the B2C price with these shops? Did you tell them, okay, you have to retail it at this amount?
Yeah, I mean, not in that language, but I said, first of all, again, the business owners or the shop owners, they are used to receive a recommended retail price. So they would also ask me, okay, and for how much do we sell it? And I knew that they need a margin of, in UK, it's a bit higher than in Germany, but I think I started with 2.2. In the UK, people like 2.4. So, I made sure that they had the margin that they expect, and that it's still something that a end consumer would like to pay. And yes, my answer is yes. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I really wanted to clarify that, because unless you can tell me if I've misunderstood, but were you focused on selling B2B before you yourself were selling B2C? Is that?
Yeah. Or let's say I did it synchronically. I first of all, I sat down and I thought about all the possible costs that could occur, and not thinking of me in my little apartment with, some stock in my hallway. But I thought a business only makes a lot of fun if you can scale it. Yeah. And that's also the only way you can run a business and kind of feel free, because at some point you don't want to be your own slave, right? You want to have someone that helps you. You want to maybe outsource the logistic. Obviously you have a shipping company that picks up the goods, but you want to have a warehouse. You don't want it to be everywhere. In the beginning, it's cute when you have your little business, but your goal is always to build up a business. And in order for a business to build up, you also need grown-up prices, right? So that's why it's important to sit down and think as if you already succeeded and have a big demand, have created a big demand. So with big demand comes a big maintenance cost. So what plays into it, and therefore my price needs to be this and that, and then I still make my margin. Many people that develop a business, I've noticed, are really hard on themselves. and very generous for everybody else that's involved in the selling process. Yeah. And I think you have to make sure that you don't suffer from your own success because you started with such low prices and then think it's difficult to raise them or something.
That's such good advice. I think you're possibly the first person I've spoken with who was so forward thinking as to think about where you wanted to be rather than where you are right now in terms of the prices, because I do know people who put their prices up at various stages along the way because they realize, okay, if I want to do this, if I sell at this price, my margins are too low, so I have to put the price up, and I've known people to do that. So I think to think in the outset, okay, price for where you want to be longer term is such great advice.
Yes. And I mean, maybe it's getting a little too philosophical at this point, but I think we women, usually, if we also are involved in a family, we have so much to do. We have so much work to do. I don't talk only about our business work, obviously. I speak about managing the home, all the tasks that we need to do, taking care of the kids, spending time with the kids without doing anything, having a free mind. We need to be really strong people. And therefore, I encourage everybody to build a business. I think it's fantastic because it gives you freedom and it gives you self-confidence. And it gives you story. It gives you the way to create something and to unleash sides and powers that usually we're not trained to show, or trained to have, but they are all in us. And what I've also noticed is that, again, I'm repeating a little bit myself, that women can be really super cautious, so much so that they rather pay a higher price themselves in working even harder, to make it better for other people. And obviously, of course, the business has to be nice for everybody. But when I say that, it means that it also includes yourself, right? So in the end, it has to make sense, the whole thing. And you don't, I don't know, you just don't want to be in a position where you work so much to make amends with the small thinking that you had in the beginning. Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Can I ask, at the outset, and did you plan from the outset that one day you would stop practicing law and this would be what you would do, or did that just evolve over time?
That evolves over time. I remember my brother said, "Can you please stop selling these jugs and concentrate on your international entertainment law and on building up the business there? Can you just stop these fish things? This fish business." And I was like, "No, I love this fish business because once it works, it's gonna work independently of me. When it comes to law, I need to sit at the computer. I need to dive into a contract, and I need quietness and calm to work on this. And that takes a lot of time. Yeah. And I only have so and so much time per day. However, if I'm selling something, and if I'm selling a lot, I can outsource the warehouse, the logistic, the preparing to ship it. I can have an online web shop. I don't need to have an offline web shop where I'm standing from dusk till dawn, but I can have an online web shop that is connected to that warehouse. So I liked this business idea because it would make me independent of work. I would just have to overview everything. Yeah. And whereas being a lawyer is something that I liked, but it's really time consuming. And even if you then take other partners or younger lawyers, you're liable for what they do. So even if you take them in, you still have to look at what they're doing. And, so Yes. So when I started, I thought it's cool, some pocket money to have it aside. And then I also realized that it's so much more fun to sell glurgling fish jars than negotiating contracts. I also like that, but I had to say it's just a positive feeling to sell something that makes other people laugh. Yeah. And no, I've never thought that could happen. I actually only realized maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I realized how much potential was in that fish, and how much bigger I could make this business if I was really focused on that, and not doing everything at once. I had a really busy day, also with the 2 kids, waking up 5 a.m. to have a calm surrounding, to do contracts, and then taking care of the kids and bringing them everywhere, then going to the warehouse, to my garage of my parents, which became my warehouse, fulfilling the orders, and going back to the law firm. And it was just too much. And at some point I understood, actually I could actually stop working as a lawyer and just do that. And I liked that idea because, again, I could build up a business that makes me that doesn't need me to be alive. Yeah. Whereas the law firm, that would never work. I would always have to run that law firm.
And I guess, as you say, it also frees up the time for you to spend more time with your family or have other interests, whatever it might be.
Yeah, because, totally.
Yeah, I guess the one of the benefits of selling products, as you've said, is you don't need to physically be there all of the time. You can travel, you can take time away, and as long as you have everything set up, the people, the processes, the business just carries on.
Yeah, exactly. It takes some time till you're there, but totally. And I would also recommend everybody who has a busy life or wants to have, time for herself or for her family, to wisely choose an occupation that is aimed to make yourself obsolete. Of course, you need to keep control over it, but build up something that can sustain and run itself with you just overviewing it, and not you being in the details and being involved 10 hours a day.
Yeah, thank you.
That's really important. Yeah.
And so to do that, did you start to build up a team to work for you?
No.
No?
No, not yet.
How did you manage to achieve that?
So first of all, in the beginning, all we did actually was just to put the jug on every table that we were either invited to or that we hosted. And then friends would get to know the fish, and then they loved it, and then they would buy it, and then they would put it on their tables, and then make it, and then present it to their friends. And so the first maybe 6, 7 years, 8 years, I spent in building up a shop, like a clientele, right? I right away built up an online shop. I just did it with something like Shopify today, so that's not too complicated and not too costly. And of course, I had zero traffic because nobody knew about it. But then I would just make sure that the fish stands, or that the product stands on platforms where other people could hear it or see it. Yeah. And so, and then after many, many years, I had more and more people. Obviously, you can also go to trade shows, and then also, that's also your platform for multiplying. I didn't go I didn't do that. I wasn't that ambitious in the beginning. I just put it everywhere, and it was like a grassrooted awareness for the fish. And then eventually shops started calling me saying they saw this here and there on the Berlin Fashion Week or whatever, and they want to order. Or I also put it a lot in hotels. So people that stayed there, it was used then again on their tables, and the guests would take it home and then make it known there, and so on. Once I had a big, or let's say like a valuable distribution list, I realized that actually I could spend some money on trade shows. So I started going on a first trade show and then on another one. And that was really nice. On the first trade show, the fish was still not known. But a few years later, I went again on that same trade show, and that increased my whole business by 1/3, or even half. It was a huge. It was by then the fish had become so popular that people were just happy to see my stand there. Although it was the first time after 8 years that I went back. And okay. And then initially I had like one delivery per month, and then I would, schlep all the stuff here. I would ask a friend to come and help, and I would pay that person to schlep all the merchandise into my living room. And then I would do one day of, repacking for all the merchants. Again, before I ordered, I already sold half of it, right? And then the next day, the guy from the mail would come and pick everything up. So I was happy that half of the jugs were already gone, and the rest I had a little room here that I made my little warehouse. Then at some point, I got the garage from my parents, so that was easier. And that was every second week I would get merchandise. And then at some point, it became that every week I would get merchandise. And then I realized that as soon as I spend all that time for rearranging, there was already the next stuff coming. And then I realized I'm in the hamster wheel and I'm not coming out. That was the moment where I realized I need to outsource the shipping and packing process. So I researched a little bit where to go. And here in Germany, we have companies that work with handicapped people. And it's quite an easy job. So they like it, and it's easy to explain and to prepare for other people that maybe have less skills. So they came over, I explained them what I needed, and within 2 weeks they took over the whole packing and storing process, which was a huge freedom for me. That was fantastic. So that was one. And before that, I looked for someone to help me write those invoices. Until today, I'm not really good with these softwares. Maybe you guys have fantastic ideas what software to use in order to have a more easier way of writing invoices and having an overview of all your orders. But I have another, like an assistant. I've always had, at some point, from a certain point on, always had an assistant that helped me with that. And I always try to work as efficient as possible. So I'm asking for this prepayment for my clients so that I don't need another accountant to write invoices and, remind the people to pay or check if they paid or so on. The process was, the idea was that people pay, you see they paid, now next day you send out the stuff so that you don't need to hire another person to check and to remind and so on. And I always, whenever I had a peak of activities, I would ask someone to come and help, but I wouldn't ask that person to work all the time because it meant it was too expensive for me, so rather take persons to help out during peaks than having someone that you pay all the time, unless you can really, you can pay for it.
That makes a lot of sense. And thank you. What I would love to talk about now, if that's okay, is jump a little bit and talk
Yeah,
about how you acquired the IP rights, how you brought the factory. Because I think I'm right in saying that the factory had actually stopped production before you came and restarted. So would you
yeah.
mind telling us about how that came about? How you made the decision that that was what you were going to do? Because obviously that's a huge step, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a huge step. So so the distribution business was doing really well, and I had acquired the exclusive distribution rights, for Europe in the meantime. And I didn't even had to do this rolling option thing because I had proven myself, and I had traveled to the UK to see the old factory, and the CEO had come to Berlin several times and to the trade shows, and we really had a beautiful relationship. And one day, and that was the second of, and by the way, the business was doing so well that I decided to close this law firm, yeah, and have more time for my family, especially for my kids. I have a handicapped child, um so I was really happy, and I felt really lucky, and I, again, encouraged other women to do similar about the business situation in which I was. And so half a year after I closed down my law firm, um, the CEO from Wade calls me and says, "I'm really sorry, but we just closed the factory." And I'm like, "Why did you close it?" I didn't even understand what he meant. And then he's like, "Yeah, we fell into administration, and they, next to producing the Gluggle jugs, they were actually living from producing high quality and ceramic bottles for, expensive drinks like scotch or whiskey or gin, like really rare content." And their main client decided to stop working with them 2 years ago. And then they had also Corona. And even if the main client gave them 2 years to do everything right, it didn't work out. And they had to file for administration and put 140 people out of job. And that, of course, was a super shock. But I didn't understand. I still didn't understand how that could happen, because the Gluggle Jug by that moment was a really popular piece, not only in Europe, obviously, also in the UK. And I didn't understand why they just increased the production of the jug then, yeah. And so I'm saying to I'm saying to the CEO, "This makes no sense. Why don't we then create a factory that just sells the Gluggle jugs?" And he said, "Yeah, I actually thought about buying the rights from the administrators." And I was like, "Oh, amazing." And I thought I would love to co-own the Gluggle jug, because I've done so much to make it so known, yeah, so popular. And he said, "Yeah, okay, let me discuss it with my wife, and I get back to you." But then I didn't hear back from him, and instead I heard somebody else called me up and said, "Yeah, he also is interested in putting a bid." And then I listened to that person's story, and that also it didn't sound, you know the right way, the way that person wanted to do it. And obviously, the other CEO, which I really really like, and we have an amazing relationship, he just had filed for administration with another company. So I thought, wow, maybe it's going to be difficult, to continue, who knows. And and I thought, and I was also afraid that somebody could take away this business from me. Like, I was afraid that somebody could come and say, "Yeah, we're just going to distribute ourselves into Europe." And in order to protect my position, I thought it's easier to buy this factory. I mean, that's what I thought. It's easier to buy the factory and find a director that's going to run it than finding another company that's going to produce the original Gluggle Jug, because there is no other company producing the original. Yeah. So I thought maybe I should just try to buy it myself and then reopen it and tell everybody to just continue doing what they've been doing the last 30 years. I also felt, I felt really sorry that they lost their jobs, because I had lived from that fish as well, right? And from their work. And I always had a very high, feeling of respect and admiration for these people that are able to create a fish jar with their hands. Yeah, of course they're using a mold. They're not, but so once I thought about this, I don't know, in my head, it was not that difficult. I thought we just need to reopen the factory. By the way, sorry, I didn't tell you this, but Wade had two factories, one that produced the Scotch bottles and one that produced only the Gluggle jugs. So it was already, if you want, a separate factory by itself. So in my thoughts, it was easy to just reopen this Gluggle Jug Factory and tell everybody to come back and continue do what they did. I didn't buy the building. I just had to. I mean, I could not have afforded that, of course. I just, entered into the lease agreement, and I don't know. In my head, it was not so difficult if everybody just keeps doing what they've been doing the last 30 years. That was my sentence in my head. And I liked the fact that I owned the jug. I liked that. I thought it was a new way to grow and a new way to get out of my comfort zone. And I just liked that story of starting with buying 10 fish and in the end the factory that made it.
It's an amazing story.
That's just a personal thing. It's not so important, I think, now. But at that time, I thought it's a cool story.
I think it's a cool story. I mean, that's one of the reasons I invited you onto the podcast, because when we met, I heard the story and just thought, wow. Because, obviously at the beginning, that was something you probably never even crossed your mind when you bought those first 10 jugs.
Never. I didn't. I never saw the need to do it. Never. Yeah. But I didn't want this thing to die. And I was not sure that the other. I mean, I'm super sure that the one person who put a bit from the way he wanted to do it. I'm now that I've done it for a year, I'm sure this would not have worked. He would have struggled, and the other one, he would have continued, but also he was I don't know. He also was already quite old. And I thought, well, then it's going to work for a few more years. And then what? Then we have same situation. So I don't know. I thought it's maybe safer this way. And I must say, I was also super naive, because it is a big thing to run a factory. Yeah.
Oh,
is that the next point?
Yeah. I mean, I was going to say you own now the IP rights for Gluggle Jug and the factory. Is that correct?
Yes. I own the mold. I own the machines. We have, the next day that we signed this, we rehired 33 workers. We hired a few more right away that were like from the overhead. Everybody from Wade. I took the people from Wade. They were amazing. Still are amazing. And ever since, we hired another 11 people. So we're also growing, and that is really good. I made one of the. So as soon as we bought it, I also asked my brother to join me on this adventure, because first of all, he's a super good leader. He's very good with people. I'm always doing my own little thing, and he's very good with also guiding people, and he has a lot of experience in there. And thanks God I did this, because it's always good to have a partner that has skills that you don't have, and that you trust 1,000%. It's not easy to have a partner, but if it's one that you like my brother, then it's worth so much, because if you are low, then he can take over, and if you need to go. If you're busy with something else, you can always help out the partner. So that's great. But anyway, so I asked him also to help, to join. He luckily did. And then so we flew to the factory. The first time I flew to sign the contracts, actually, I flew myself. And it was such an amazing feeling to enter this factory and to see all these people that you only knew from the paper. Yeah, the former CEO from Wade that I told you about, he was so nice. I called him right away when I knew that I would get the bid, and he said, it's not a problem, don't worry. And he offered me his help, and he helped me till today. I can always call him when I don't know something. And so he introduced me into this whole business, and he explained to me who is who I need to do what, and so on. And then I flew over, and then I got to know all the staff members on the shop floor. And that was maybe the most beautiful moment, to see them and shaking my hand and thanking me for saving their job. That was really touching. And then with the time, the first thing was obviously to gain the trust of all the suppliers and the shop floor. So I did a meeting, I introduced myself. They wanted to know for how long I've been selling the jug and if I can do it. And I used to be Wade's biggest client, so that was reassuring for them. And then we invited all the suppliers from Wade, and we also gained their trust, introduced us, talked about us a little. And obviously they didn't like to perform and then get money, because some of them had not been paid due to the administration thing. So we always had to pay up front. But today, for instance, it's no longer like that. Today we have that trust, and we have a beautiful relationship with all our suppliers. And then I also, had an interview with each co-worker, and I asked them to tell me if there's anything they would do differently, because given the fact that many of them have been working there for decades, obviously they knew more things. They knew, and I didn't know anything, right? So I was sitting there with a paper and a pen, and my brother was interviewing some, and I was interviewing others, and we listened to what they said, yeah. And some of them had actually a lot of improvement, like a lot of good advices for us. And then we implemented them. And after some time, and every morning, we have a meeting with the management team, no matter where I am. Yeah, so it can be here now from Berlin. Every morning I talk to our management team. And and after half a year, we asked one of the people there that we knew everybody liked and everybody trusted, that used to be the production manager, James Morgan. We asked him to become our director, and he happily agreed. Luckily for us, I mean. And also the people, the workers were super happy about that. And we asked the accountant of Way to become our CFO, and he also luckily agreed. And the sales manager of Way to become our sales manager. So Jake Copeland and Kim Rowley, and they're just amazing people, all fantastic people. And I'm also happy because they accepted us, even if we are not from England, they accepted us.
That's amazing. And it sounds like you've retained a lot of the original staff as well.
Yes, only. I mean, again, we hired more people, and actually more people also from that were formerly working for Wade, but also some that we took from, let's say, Emma Bridgewater. There are other companies in Stoke that are struggling a little. And we're really happy that we can also support the city and the people there, and keep alive a craft that I don't know how long it's going to be around us, yeah. And the craft that has been here for so many years, that we can still entertain it.
And how do you find sort of managing a business. Well, obviously you're based in Berlin, I assume, most of the time, because that's where your family are, and the factory in England. Are there any sort of particular considerations to have when you're managing your business from a bit of a distance? Or with technology now, does it not? Do you feel it doesn't really make a difference where people are?
First of all, you have to have people that you really trust and that you know are capable, or that you can they are willing and able to learn with you. Yeah, they're open to learn with you. You need to have those on site. There's no question about it. If you have these ears and eyes and brains on site, and you have a good communication, then it is, possible to work from a distance. And I would even say that it's a very healthy thing to work from a distance. And I'm going to elaborate on this. So first of all, thanks to our management team, meaning this, the CEO, the CFO, sales manager. We also have something like a COO. They're all fantastic. And also the people that work for us, many of them, as I mentioned before, had already been working decades for Wade. So they know exactly what they're doing. Yeah. And it was important that we gain their trust. And it was important for me that they understand that we are all a team, and that the work of every single co-worker or employee of the Gluggle Jug Factory plays a huge role. And I knew I couldn't do everything. I needed to focus on the sales, and I need someone else to focus or orchestrate the production. And I need each single co-worker to trust me that I'm going to make sure that I'm selling the goods so that I can pay everybody, and to have that person work on casting, and just focus on casting and not be worried whether tomorrow he will have this job, or the fettler to focus on fettling and doing the most beautiful fish they can fettle, and dipper and sprayer and whoever we have there, and selector and, person at the kiln. So that was super important for me, that they understand how we work. Usually, whenever I'm going there, usually we have a team meeting. If I'm not there, then James, our CEO, and Jack, CFO, have a team meeting to have the people on board and know where we are standing, what we achieved, and what we achieved in the last months, and what our goals are for the next months. So that has also created some kind of bonding with all of us. Yeah, we don't put loads of pressure with them. But of course they need to fulfill a certain numbers, which we need in order to be a vital factory. But they also know why we need these numbers to be. They see the whole picture. And so this already, I think, is super important. Then when you are an owner of whatever business, you need to know your numbers. You need to know what's going on in your business. And that means that you need to spend time on looking every day, or latest every week, as to how your numbers were. And you need to take the time to collect all this data, and to have mechanism in place to collect data. Yeah. If you don't know your numbers, then you don't know where you're standing, and you don't know if you did better or worse than last year or last month, and maybe you don't even know why you did better or worse, because you don't know how you're doing. Yeah. So this is absolutely crucial. Every day we look at the numbers of the pre-day, and every Monday we look at the numbers of last week, and we put them apart, these numbers, and look into them to the detail to know how come that day we didn't do well, what's going on, down to the coworker. How come that his yield is not so good, or that he didn't reach the number? What's going on with him? Can you have a chat with him? Can you let him know? Things like that. That's the A and O, as we say in German. That's super important. Yeah. Know your numbers. So, yeah. And then obviously consistency. Yeah. Consistency and presence, or consistency in asking. And when you ask and you don't get an answer right away, to not forget to re-ask the next day, to make the person that works for you understand that really matters to you. Yeah. I think these are, if you can do this, like have a good team that you can trust and that is performing, or making sure, or detecting if someone is not performing or something is not performing and fixing that, coupled with an overview of numbers, and always what's also important is that you always try to innovate and to try to improve. That's also super important. So not only do you see how are we going, but where do we want to be tomorrow? Where do we want to be next month? What are our next milestones? Yeah, that's also important to look at. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. And wow, I was thinking as you were talking, obviously you mentioned at the beginning you had your law firm, but with this business, you've come such a long way, to starting off by yourself, selling these units to having a whole factory. That's a lot of change.
That's a lot of change, yeah. But I have a lot of people that help me, with this. I couldn't do it by myself, only with that fantastic team. Yeah.
Amazing.
Totally. Yeah.
So I've taken quite a lot of your time already, but if you don't mind, before we finish, I would love to talk about something different, something hopefully quite fun to talk about, which is that I saw earlier this year Gluggle Jug on the Great Pottery Throwdown. I'd love to know a little bit about that and how that came about, just to change the tone completely.
Yeah, please. So actually, this was just another coincidence. Yeah. They approached us. And obviously, the Gluggle Jug is an iconic piece of British design, and it's really famous. So many people have it. And so one day, the production company of the Great Pottery Throwdown called us and asked if they can, if they can include it in their show. And then we said, yeah, of course. And then they bought the jugs, and they. First of all, we didn't hear a lot from it anymore until it was broadcast. And then, that was actually quite beautiful, because not only was the show really nice, and it also showed how difficult it is to make a gurgling jug, but we saw a peak in our online sales. And then one of the hosts of the shows, Keith Brymer-Jones, he later then came to visit the company, the factory, and obviously we were very proud of having him over. I wasn't there that day. I couldn't be in the UK, but the team there was so happy, and me, of course, so happy that he took the time to come. It was really nice.
That's amazing.
Yes, we had some of these beautiful things. I don't know if you noticed there is a advertisement from Google for the Google Lens. And they also just called us or wrote an email and asked if they could use the Gluggle Jug in their advertisement. And we were like, yeah, of course, it would be fantastic. And that was also nice. But obviously a totally different setting in comparison to the Great Pottery Throwdown.
Oh, that's all amazing. And what I was saying, what's next for Gluggle Jugs? But I guess some of this has been unexpected. So what's next for Gluggle Jugs that you know about?
Well, the next, you mean like, so we are constantly working on colors. That's what we're known for. We produce the most amazing colors. We work with a fantastic company in Stoke also, so much expertise and history. Also, this company that I'm talking about is super old and super nice. And we always, like twice a year, I spent some time there, and we go about, colors of the year, and maybe colors that I've seen somewhere, or that merchant have asked me. Shop owners have sometimes also asked us if we can start with this and that color. And then we decide on a few, we make trials, and then we come up with a few. And last week I went to the factory with my best friends, and I saw something that's actually not a color. I cannot tell you too much about it because it's a beautiful surprise. But I saw something that was not. It was in a process of being produced, and it looked so beautiful that we decided to, even if it was just a random thing in the course of production, we decided to bring out a certain collection next spring with something that's been unseen so far on the Gluggle Jugs. So look out for that.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so excited. I'm so excited to see it. And actually,
yes.
Speaking about your colours, when, I saw your display at Top Drawer earlier this year, and the colours were what caught my eye from across the room, because you just have the most wonderful, so many colours. And yes. I love colours. So beautiful.
Yes, thank you. You saw the Lustre collection, which is all new and shiny, and it's they're just beautiful. Yeah, they're beautiful, and you can go crazy on colors, right?
Oh,
especially
absolutely.
When you have control over the production, like we can just go crazy on whatever we want.
That's lots of fun.
Women, yeah, totally.
Well, thank you so much for all you've shared, Sophie. I have one final question before we finish, which is, what would your number one piece of advice be for other product creators?
So my number one piece of advice would be to check if whatever you're spending lots of time on is actually popular or not. And if you realize that it's not working, to get rid of it as fast as possible. Like, don't hang in with something that doesn't sell. And no matter how much you talk about it and how much you show it around, nobody wants to have. Just don't be in love with your product that nobody else is in love with. That would be one piece of advice. And if I can add another one, it's the one that we spoke earlier about. Don't be too cheap on yourself. Value your time, value your energy, value your creativity, your efforts, maybe your life work. Value this time, and be kind to yourself. You don't work for other people. You work first of all for yourself and for your family, and therefore you can't take yourself out of the calculation.
That's great advice. Thank you so much, Sophie.
You're very welcome. It's nice to talk about all this in a podcast.
It's great to hear it. Thank you so much for listening right to the end of this episode. Do remember that you can get the full back catalogue and lots of free resources on my website, vickyweinberg.com. Please do remember to rate and review this episode if you've enjoyed it, and also share it with a friend who you think might find it useful. Thank you again, and see you next week. If you've been inspired to start a podcast in 2024, I really recommend my podcast host, Captivate. Captivate were my top pick when I started podcasting 4 years ago, because of how easy it was for a complete novice like me to get started. I've stuck with them for the last 4 years because Captivate is still really simple to use. They keep adding great new features, like the ability to share ads like these, and they've just been really reliable. So when you're ready to start your own podcast, you can use the link in the show notes and get a free 7-day trial with Captivate.